I don't know how much of this is true and how much of it's lore, but like the original version of cheersing, I was told you're supposed to cheers so that my beer goes into yours and yours goes into mine. So I'm not
poisoning you.
Yeah, so you can't poison the other guy, and that's why you're looking at each other in the eyes.
Like, are we gonna die right now over this pint?
If he's flinching, I'm not drinking this, you know, and.
That's actually kind of concerning.
Yeah, exactly. Like
that's why I never look in your eyes.
Never look.
Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is C Certified Brewhead.
I'm Scott Beer, cold beer enthusiast.
Welcome to episode 60 of Beer Nuts Podcast, and mate, today's a special one. We have Uncle Steve Beauchesne here from Beau's in. Is Uncle Steve okay?
Sure.
Just all excited now.
It's an Australian thing.
Mate,
I've got nephews.
Counts.
Thanks
Thank you for having us, man.
Niece now too.
You do?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So it is Uncle Steve. If anyone sees him, Uncle Steve. Mate, thank you for having us out here and at the brewery, which is
thanks for coming out.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. It's the day after Oktoberfest.
We're all alive. We're still here. We made it.
The eyes are open. Yeah.
Slightly.
Yeah.
There's some bags, but they're open.
We're all here. How you feeling? You looking?
I'm good. We had a great weekend. It just surpassed all our expectations.
I'm not surprised.
2 years ago, we moved it forward a week, and the weather has just cooperated like you wouldn't believe since. Yeah. So
been phenomenal.
We're glad we did it.
Yeah, nailed it. And this was the 9th year running, right?
Yeah, 9th year. We're now well over $500,000 raised for charity.
Amazing.
We figure we added about $75,000 for charity over the last weekend, and
crazy.
About 20,000 people showed up.
Damn.
And man, we had a lot of fun.
So did we.
Didn't we though?
This is our first year. We'd heard about it constantly. I'd say the last 2 or 3 years, people were always like, "Are you on Oktoberfest? Are you on Oktoberfest?" And we just hadn't done it. And we were talking with Taylor and Jen, and it all worked out. And we were just shocked. Like we rocked up, and I didn't know what.
We didn't know what to expect. Yeah,
we've been to a few big beer fests. You know, we went to the Michigan Summer Beer Festival this year.
Yeah.
We go to Chambly every year, and they're pretty sizable. So I expected that, but Jesus, not like 10,000 people
a
in
brewery-run beer festival. So there's not a ton. Well, there were some guest taps, but for the most part, it was a Beau's beer festival, and we showed up, and we're like, "Where are we right now?" And there's
it was honestly
keg toss and music and beer. It was awesome.
Bands, skateboarding.
Yeah. The idea behind it is trying to take everything we're passionate about and condense it down into like 2 days of this is what BAOS stands for. So we've got obviously the charity element. We bring out 17 of our own beers. On top of that, we bring in all of our friends' beers from, we had lots of Ontario and Quebec stuff. We also had Hunapoo from Cigar City there.
We had Oxbow?
Yeah.
We missed out on that.
Yeah, it was tough to get hold of.
Yeah. And then we've got all the fun activities. We've got one stage that's just dedicated to underground punk rock stuff, and then the main stage, which is all the sort of bigger name indie Canadian acts, and you get just a whole sense of community that really sort of evolves around it. And the part that I really giggle about is the entire town of Vankleek Hill has 1,800 people, so we get more than 10 times. Yeah, we get more than 10 times the town's population.
Wow.
Yeah.
How does the town feel about that?
I was gonna ask. Yeah.
They're super supportive. They're proud, and that's the cool part. After the festival and during the festival, people come up and they're like, "Oh, you've put Vankleek Hill on the map," and this is so cool. And it's great seeing so much pride coming out, because we've always had this quirky, fun town that just nobody knew about.
Right.
And so the brewery's kind of highlighted this quirky, fun town.
I guess it's okay for 2 days. If it was a month-long festival,
people might start wear thin on.
I assume you're generating crazy dollars for the economy in the area. The local businesses are benefiting. You've got the campsite, so that people are staying over. They're going to supermarkets and restaurants. And
yeah, for sure. And on top of that, we spend probably around $400,000 on the goods and services that are sourced locally to put the festival on.
Right, like the tents and
all the tents, the sound system, and all of the things that you see there cost a lot of money, and we do our best to source it as close to home as possible.
Amazing.
So it brings in just a ton of economics just from putting the festival on.
Right.
But then when you've got 20,000 people that all stop for gas, buy groceries, have a meal, everybody benefits.
That's fantastic.
I think no one benefits more than the Windsor Tavern, but that's okay because they're good guys. So
people, that's like the after party spot.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
That's the one.
Yeah.
No, super impressive, man. So
It was a cool feel too, and you have that Oktoberfest feel with like the tents and the
green
picnic
hats.
tables, and everyone has their lederhosen on.
Yeah, we saw you had your joint.
Yeah, we
on
saw
there.
you.
Absolutely.
Happiest man in the festival.
Happiest man in the world, right there.
Yeah, it's hard not to be happy.
That's what we were saying. Like, how can you be upset? Running a pretty big ass brewery.
Just
Everyone
kind of,
loves it.
anything about running a brewery is like, if you're not having fun at this,
You're in the wrong profession.
what are you doing? You know?
We always notice we come to these breweries and everyone has this big stupid grin ear to ear. I'm like, why are you so happy? You're at work.
Be here, but
But
This is why we're
this is
at.
your work.
We get to drink beer.
we got a whole bunch of stuff today. We started off
Yes.
with something else. I think Scott and I have the Infinity
Mirror
Oh,
bread
fantastic.
IPA.
Halcyon, which is our first time trying this. Super, super great.
Love it.
Fantastic bread IPA.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
Cheers. man.
Cheers.
What do you got there?
Lug
tread?
I got my baby.
Yeah.
Lug tread.
Are we sitting within like hundreds of thousands of liters of lug tread right now? Is that what's going on?
We are,
These big
yeah.
fermenters?
So each of these fermenters around us has about 42,000 liters of beer. So we brew 6 batches back to back to fill one of these tanks.
Damn.
And it's kind of awesome. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Strange Brew.
Yeah.
But every time I walk in here, I get that line stuck in my head. I always thought the drowning in beer would be like heaven. My brother's not here, and I got 2 soakers. This isn't heaven. This sucks.
That's such a great movie. So Canadian.
it.
So Canadian. I
We
heard.
have to get on it.
Oh man,
Just a
it's
couple of
funny.
hosers.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the capacity of the entire brewery now? Because there's 2 big boys outside of this notice. Haven't been here for a couple of years.
We never
Yeah.
made it this far back in the brewery tour. We only saw the
we
front
thought we were
little
good
room.
for
Like,
the
oh, this
tour,
is
like,
it?
10, like whatever,
Yeah.
5 times or something.
Yeah.
Capacity for us has been funny. Like, we started off literally as small as you can start a brewery, and we didn't have rich backers or deep pockets or anything. So we've just kind of expanded just enough capacity to kind of get through the next year after year. So this year we're going to be putting out about 65,000 hectoliters, which is 6.5 million liters of beer, which is crazy amount.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's silly. It's a silly amount of beer.
It's ridiculous, and you need to stop it.
Compared to like a macro brewery, this is like less beer than they would spill in a day. But for us, because we started off so small, like my perspective is just
This is incredible.
one of amazement.
Right.
Never would have guessed that we could be at this point.
How's the response? Like, how has that been expanding to the States? Is that like a whole new challenge, being that the laws are different? And
I mean, the interesting thing is it was a whole lot easier to do the process to get into the States than it is to get in most Canadian provinces.
so yeah.
But as much like I love drinking in the U.S. and I love every different market there. Well, maybe not everyone, but there's a lot of cool scenes there.
Yeah.
But when we started selling, we figured it would work exactly the same as it did here. And there's like subtle, nuanced differences that really sort of took us a while to understand. So we've been selling it to New York for about 2 years.
Okay.
It's really only in the last 3 months that we kind of got things right, and suddenly we're seeing the sales take off.
Right.
And that's, again, kind of our way of doing things is go in without really knowing what you're doing, but go in small and go in slow, figure it out, and then say, okay, like let's do a little bit more of it.
Right.
And so that's kind of what we're doing right across the country right now. Is we started off in Quebec, and that's taken off like crazy. So that's like 10% of our sales now is just in Quebec.
That's amazing.
We're pretty much in all the other provinces now, and we're finding some provinces are growing faster than others, and some we have to tweak some things, but it's usually sort of product mix which is the interesting part. Is
You're trying to find out where the tastes lie in each
Yeah.
place. So what's the general, without giving, if it's giving away the secret sauce type of thing, like I guess you probably lead with lug tread and be like, all right, I think this one could do some Tom Green, this could do some Kisma, like what's the deal? Like how does that work?
What seems, the way I like to do it myself is put everything there and see what people gravitate towards, and then give them more of that.
And then just like cull.
But that's hard to do because some of the provinces are still sort of government run, and so they will say, no, we want this one. And then if that one doesn't do well, it's very hard to convince them, well, maybe we should try a different one.
Right.
So it's, and typically, typically a government store or government agency is going to say, well, give me the one that sells the most, which is lug tread.
Right.
And the interesting thing is, if you're in BC, you're probably getting, something from Phillips to kind of satisfy your sort of lug tread like need, but you probably don't get a lot of gruits. So maybe it's our gruits that are going to sell better there.
I can't think of many other than the ones you guys
were talking
made.
about it yesterday, and I couldn't think of any others.
Yeah. So what we're finding to sort of get noticed in other provinces, it tends to be the stuff that here is a very small amount of our sales, but it's the stuff that people are like, whoa, I've never had one of these before.
This out here. Yeah, that's cool.
So it's a great way to sort of lead into a market. You're like, hey, we do this like crazy awesome stuff that you've never tried before. Oh, that's really cool. Hey, we also have this really subtly balanced, complex, crisp, drinkable beer. Why don't you try that too? But having a way to kind of get someone's attention right now, and I think this is kind of like, this is the kind of thing where when I hear a brewer complain about this, I really laugh. There's so much choice right now.
There is.
That it's a little bit difficult to get someone's attention. As a beer drinker, I think this is the best thing that could have ever happened.
Absolutely.
The amount of choice people have is staggering and
insane,
and it's wonderful. So I don't want to sound like I'm complaining about that.
Not at all.
But in 2006 when we opened, just being a brewery was exciting to people.
Right.
Now it's like, okay, you can get a Kolsch in pretty much every province. You can get an IPA pretty much everywhere.
Yes.
What can you give me that I haven't had before is kind of an interesting challenge at times.
You and I spoke when we did a quick interview for BrewHeads maybe a couple months, maybe June or something.
Yeah.
And Scott and I, because we were at the Canadian Brewery Awards in Ottawa in May, and we saw your keynote. And while we were in town, we interviewed Matt Tweedy from
Tooth and Nail,
and Josh and Scott from Dominion City.
Awesome.
And they spoke about Beau's with like reverence. So,
cool.
And it was very nice to see because when we got into craft beer, I feel like Beau's was one of the first.
Oh yeah, we were crazy. I think it was our
getting
first
into it,
real,
right? Yeah, like pushing
entrance into the
Ontario.
craft. Very nice.
Represent. You know what I mean? That's why we were excited to actually chat with you, like in the brewery itself, because it's a big deal for us that we, it was a gateway for us when we were just. Like, we started this thing called 365 Days of Beer, where we just had to document beer. We're like, there's no way there's 300 types of beer.
I got told you'll never do it.
Never.
There's not even 365 beers.
But we agreed with that.
Yeah,
we were
like, it's going to be tough, man.
And it forces you to try everything. And all of a sudden, what is this lug tread thing? And like, we've seen it in LCBO, and it sort of took us there. So it was very cool to see these guys that were saying that you guys actually paved the way. You took this small town that you, essentially, like you were saying, rebranded this small town as this cool little hub of like, commerce and like this cool shit. And then you had to go to Ottawa, which was the nearest, I guess, probably equal to Ottawa and Montreal, except for bureaucracy.
Right, to stay in the province.
Stupid borders.
Ridiculous. That's a fake ass line. And you had to convince these bars. This is kind of what I want to ask you about, because these guys were telling us about what you had to do, and I haven't heard it from your mouth, but like Josh and Matt were saying that you had to actually go into Ottawa and be like, look, take this beer, like, can I please, like, can you speak to that about how hard it was to break through those barriers and get your beer into? Yeah,
well, there was a myth in Ottawa at the time that you couldn't sell craft beer.
Right.
That's why it was so hard to get a loan. Is no one would believe that a brewery would actually succeed. There was a brewery called Hart that had failed.
I think you spoke about that. Did you say that in the
thing? Yeah, absolutely. And then Heritage was trying to make a go of it, but they weren't taken off. The clock tower was there, but really wasn't growing or thriving at the time. And other breweries would kind of laugh at us. And I remember John Graham from Church Key saying, "Oh, so you're doing missionary work out there, are you?" And the interesting part though was, in some ways, we had it so easy because there wasn't another local brewery trying to get taps. So, like, I remember the first. One of the first sales calls we did was to the Black Tomato.
Oh, I love that place.
Yeah,
awesome
I've been there
spot.
before,
And Pete, the owner, was there, and it was actually my dad and Phil walked in. Phil's my brother.
Okay.
And they walk in. They're like, hey, we're going to be opening up a brewery in the Ottawa area, kind of expecting like, okay, this is going to be, here's my launch. I got my, and before they get another word out, Pete's like, great, when can I get it?
Wow.
And they're like, well, we haven't brewed it yet.
Yeah. Maybe in a month.
He didn't ask price. He didn't want to see, marketing. He didn't care about anything other than getting a local beer.
Amazing.
And Hart was really cool because they'd made these stickers that said, support your local brewery. And all we basically did is we'd go from pub to pub, and if we saw one of those Hart stickers, we're like
they want us.
We got a tap here because Hart's no longer business, and they obviously believe in that. So, so we got a lot of really early adopters, and if you're opening a brewery now, on one sense, you've got a much more educated consumer. There's a movement behind it, but wow, there's a lot of competition for taps, and if you're brand new today, you've got just a completely different set of challenges than we had. In our day, the challenge was, I had a craft beer once, I didn't like it. And it was like, that was the end of the conversation with like a bar owner. And you're like, yeah, but your no, I had one and it was awful.
Right.
Like, yeah.
That's not about you, dude. Like, there's other people paying for your product.
Yeah, but because there was the ones willing to try right out of the gates, what's really neat, especially in Ottawa, is it's a fairly small, tight-knit restaurant scene.
Right.
And so they all talk to each other, and they'll be like, oh, you put that Beau's on, what's going on with that? And they're like, yeah, people are buying the crap out of it. And they're like, oh, okay. And then it just made it easier to get the next place, and then the next place. And it's kind of cool because, again, you're looking back over 11 years, it seems like a lot of growth, but it's never felt like, this thing changed and then all of a sudden we had all the accounts.
Incremental.
It's been a slow, steady climb.
We'd put a sales rep out there and they'd come back on average with one new restaurant every week.
Right.
Next week there's another one. Next week there's another one. And 11 years in, that math still holds true. We have more sales reps now, so it's now we're getting hundreds of new restaurants in a 3-month period, and so now you see it,
but it took time to sort of
in year one when we're at 30 accounts, 30 weeks in,
you're like,
and then next week you're at 31 accounts, you don't notice it as being this crazy change. It's just little bit by little bit, and it's just always felt like we're just moving a boulder uphill kind of slowly.
It's amazing, man. Speaking of wonderful beer,
shall we?
I feel like
your glasses are empty. I gotta catch up, guys.
I know.
Sorry, Steve. It's
we just kept the ball
You're
rolling.
making me look bad here.
So.
Hey, we have a problem. So
no, we don't. We got lots of beer.
We have 5 problems right here.
5 big problems. Since you are the boss, you are in charge of what happens next. You hold the key.
Hold the key to our destiny.
Oh wow, so much to choose from. What you guys were drinking?
Infinity, which
Sure.
is honestly phenomenal.
Really
let's not open that. Let's. Do you guys want to try the cherry milk stout?
Yes.
Tom Green.
Yes.
Never been scared.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yes, which is what was the inspiration with adding some.
And how did you get in touch with?
How did
Tom Green?
So the
cool
Tom
There's a
story.
great story behind it.
Yeah, it's an awesome story actually. So I grew up as a huge Tom Green fan, but never knew him.
In his rap days or in his
I started off because growing up in the area, so we'd go see Organized Rhyme play. I remember one show with them wearing laundry baskets on their head and throwing bread into the crowd.
Classic.
Hold up, he was a rapper. He's an MC.
Yeah, he had bars too.
For real?
I'm not even joking.
Yeah, he's actually really talented.
Very
Where's he
talented
from?
rapper. Ottawa.
He's an Ottawa boy.
Oh shit.
And
That explains a lot.
yeah, exactly. One second here.
Yeah. Hey, take your time.
So he went and got himself all famous, and then
And he had the TV show and
TV show, movies,
everything.
And he lives in LA now, but his parents still live in the area.
All right.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Ooh, I love that lactose nose.
Mm-hmm.
Very subtle in the end.
Yeah,
Like it.
This is a great. Was this 5 still?
5-6.
5-6. Nice.
So, but he'd come back to Ottawa on a regular basis to visit his parents and his buddies, and when he'd go out with his friends, they'd go out for beers, and they quite often found themselves having a lug tread or something else that we were brewing. He's maybe sort of calmed down his touring schedule a little bit now, but at the time he was doing, hundreds of stand-up shows a year.
Right.
And kind of, part of his thing was after his show, he'd like to have a beer and talk to the crowd. And he had this idea, like, how cool would it be if it was like my beer?
Yeah.
And so he asked one of his buddies to kind of scope us out. And I guess his buddy came back with a good report. And so one day I'm in the office and I get a phone call and it's like, hey, it's Tom. I'm like, whoa, this is cool. And so he's like, he tells me that basically. Yeah. And he says, would you like to make a beer with me? And I said, well, I'm a huge fan, so I'd love to do this. But I'm also, a firm believer that if we're going to do this, we got to do it legitimately. We can't just slap your face on lug tread.
Absolutely.
We have to make a real Tom Green beer, and it has to somehow speak to you. It has to work. And it literally took us a year to figure this out.
Wow.
We've since done lots of collabs with non-brewers, like everyone from Margaret Atwood to the hardcore band DOA. Yeah. But this was the first time we'd worked with someone who wasn't a brewer. So that process took forever to figure out because we're like, well, what kind of malts do you want to use? And he's like,
what's a malt? Really?
I like beer. Yeah. Help me out here.
Beer good.
And it wasn't until sort of the watershed moment was when we started talking about his body of work. So we were like, oh, well, what if the beer, somehow related to some of the stuff you did? And, so he had some pretty bizarre
Are you referring to the stunt with the milk bag and the lactose? Am I going in the right direction?
You absolutely.
Okay.
So the milk, drinking milk right out of a cow's udder. Yeah. He did a lot of work with milk back in the day. And so we're like, oh, how cool would this be if we made a milk stout? Because, again, it was a style that in Ontario you couldn't find. Right. There was Charlevoix makes a really good one in Quebec, but very difficult to get in Ontario. And we're like, so it's a kind of rare, legit craft style. And so we sat down, we brought Tom to the Manx in Ottawa, gave him some of the Charlevoix milk stout and said, this is like an example of the style, and this is how we think we could make it a little bit different. He's like, this is great. So we started working on it. We made just a sort of a pilot batch to start with, and there was a festival in Toronto that was kind of, they decided to feature collaborations with non-brewers. So we're like, oh, that works out well. We have this. Yeah. So we submitted that, and they gave an award for sort of the one that was voted most wonderful or whatever. And the award was actually a listing in the LCBO stores. Nice. And there's like 450 LCBO stores. So a listing in the LCBO is like, that's a lot of beer. Yeah. And so when we won, it's like, hey Tom, I guess we're moving this into production here. Yeah, and he's been just so much fun to work with. He legitimately loves the beer. We have to ship it to him all the time. Nice. And he's brought our beer on the Jimmy Fallon show. He's like brought it to like all sorts of cool people around the world, and he's just always talking about it. He's always promoting it.
One thing I've always appreciated about you guys is you stay true to organic. All your malts and barley are organic. What prompted that? Like, there's not a lot of breweries. It's more expensive to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Why would you do that then?
Well, the part that I find funny is it's very hard to find out that these are actually certified organic beers. We don't go out of our way to trump that, or I shouldn't use that word anymore. I guess.
Cut it.
Not allowed to use. He's taken that word.
I know.
From me. Ruined it.
Damn you.
Now it's political. My God. We don't trumpet the fact that we're organic.
Nice flip. That was good.
Yeah.
Well played.
Good thing I didn't draw any attention to it either.
So on we always end up talking about the hazy stuff. I'm just really curious as to what maybe, like, are you interested in that as an individual, as a beer drinker, as a brewery owner? Is that something that BAOS would pursue, being that it feels like because we're obsessed with this dumbass stuff, we always end up just...
Yeah.
Canada was a little slow
Yeah.
to sort of pick up on it, and now it feels like all of a sudden...
Everyone's
not so much
got one, yeah.
Everyone's got one,
Yeah.
and 7-8 times out of 10, they're really good. Like, I'm shocked at how well people have, like, picked up on it.
Yeah.
I've noticed, I went to something in Quebec recently, and I in Montreal, and I tried a whole bunch of... They had, like, 6 from Montreal breweries, and it felt like it was kind of like this half-hearted, like... it's this style.
Or even in Michigan, we were in Michigan,
was
and everyone was
exactly the same.
slapping Northeast IPA on it. It wasn't. Like, this is nothing like a Northeast IPA. What do you just put a
probably
name
was
on
even
it?
less hazy than this.
Yeah.
And maybe they dry hug with mosaic, so it
Right.
smelled fruity, and that was
Right.
kind of it. So we were
Yeah.
like, are you guys reluctantly doing this, or what's? But how do you feel about that? And
Yeah.
would Beau's ever present a product? Like
So we're kind of funny. I think one of the reasons we held off on having a full-time IPA for so long was this weird source of pride of we don't follow trends kind of thing.
Yeah.
The flip side of it is they're tasty beers.
Yeah.
And, we like to put out lots of different things. We get caught up quite often in this thing where it's like, well, if we didn't do it first, we just don't want to do it. Pick up our marbles and go home.
Right.
It's this like we've got this thing where we always say we're not competing with other breweries, we're competing with what we did last year.
Fair.
But where like that's not entirely true is this backwards pride thing of, oh, you beat us to the punch on that, so we don't want to
Just jump on the bandwagon.
We don't want to follow you. We
Right.
want to like lead our own path. So this year we're going to be putting out a blueberry IPA and a double IPA.
Nice.
I'm sure we'll probably at some point
Mess
put it
around
out.
with it a little
We'll
bit.
probably wait until people hate them.
I was gonna say wait till it's ironic.
Exactly,
And like,
Hey, here it is.
all
we could
Galaxy Mosaic.
have done this when
Yeah.
you liked it.
Yeah, but now you hate it. We're gonna make you love it again.
It'll be something goofy like
Yeah.
that, I'm sure.
I like that attitude.
I'm in it.
It's positive. That's amazing, Steve. I'm going to let you go. We're taking up enough of your time, mate. Thank you so much for
been a lot
the
of
chat.
fun. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, man.
Make sure
talking,
to follow
guys.
you guys. It's
Likewise.
at Beau's All Natural everywhere, yeah?
Pretty
Across
much,
the board,
yeah.
Online, on
Yeah.
social, website, all that.
Yeah. Well, the website's bows.ca, but
Even easier.
Google finds this stuff.
Yeah.
You don't even
use
need
your
to know.
Google, kids.
Use your Google machine, do the Googles. That's it, guys. So if you enjoyed the podcast, give us a thumbs up and a subscribe on YouTube. Check us out on social media at BAOS Podcast. And of course, if you like these long form, good ass conversations with gentlemen like Uncle Steve, check us out on Apple Podcasts. And that's it, guys. Cheers.
Peace.
See you guys.